Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Chris with Inside the U. Thanks for stopping by. The Miami Hurricanes lose 75-62 to number one Tennessee, dropped to 3-7 on the season, 7 straight losses now, and that 3-7 mark is their worst since 1992. So there's a lot I want to get into about that, about how this 10 games have started, and then also how I see this season coming up, with these next few games here. So I'll get into that also, but I'm definitely going to talk about the game, what I saw from the first half, from the second half, some things that stood out to me. But then there was also something that Jim Larrañaga said in his post-game press conference that stood out that I definitely want to get to. And if you're curious in seeing everything that he had to say, I posted the transcript of what Larrañaga said on InsideTheU.com. So definitely check that out. But also drop in the comments below. Let me know what you thought about this game and how the season has started. I'm sure you're disappointed. It's certainly disappointing with what this team was expected to do and with where they're at right now. Okay, so the loss to Tennessee, lose by 13 points. Early in the first half, I thought Miami was playing well, coming into the game. I thought Miami was going to have to shoot the ball from three very well to have a chance to pull off this upset. And I thought they do have the guys that can make threes, even though they've been struggling during their losing streak. Coming into the game, shooting just 29% from three, averaging 7.5 makes a game during that losing streak. And they performed much better to start the year, from 3-point land. And I thought they had to get back to that. They had to, make at least 10 threes. I thought was a number that they had to get to, shoot at a good clip, 35%, something really good. And Tennessee makes it difficult. They're a good defensive team. They're a good offensive team. They rank top 10 in the country in both categories, and they defend the three really well, allowing teams just to shoot 26%. So I thought it was difficult for Miami coming into it, but they got off to a really good start from three, 6 of 12 from three to start the game. It looked good. Tennessee was hitting threes as well. But Miami was doing a good job staying in it, staying close. And anytime you have a game where you're trying to pull off the upset, you're just trying to stay close, stay in the game, kind of put pressure on the other team. The team with all the pressure in terms of the expectations of being ranked number one, for example. And Tennessee, this is their first game as the number one team since 2019. So I thought that was important to kind of stay with the game and keep the score close. Also, get your team a little bit of confidence with how things have gone. And then they get that lead. Linked makes a nice hook shot, goes up 25-24, but 12 minutes into the game. And then everything just fell apart. And that's really where the game was lost. Coach said after the game, during their timeout there, ever since that timeout that they had, it felt like they hadn't played together before. It felt like they were terrible and that everything was falling apart. Tennessee closed the half on a 14-0 run, goes up into halftime up 13. Miami missed 8 shots during that span, had 5 turnovers, just wasn't playing good on defense. And, to me, that's where the game was lost. That was a pivotal point in the game. Again, you're just trying to keep it close. You definitely don't want to let a run like that. And offensively, during that time, that they really struggled. And I think that's where this team could be much better at. And I think that's where some of this lineup stuff is going to have to get sorted out. Coach is going to have to figure out the best lineup. And he said, the players, they're just too inconsistent right now, offense and defensively and that's why you're seeing so many different guys in there. They go with another starting lineup in this game that they've used recently, but we'll see if that continues because I don't think it looks great at all times. So for the game, Miami only shoots 39% from the floor, 14 turnovers. And they had that hot shooting start from three, 6 of 12. But after that, after Matthew Cleveland hit one, the team missed 17 straight threes. And then they made a few at the end. They finished 8 of 33. They finished at 24%, which I guess if you look at it, that's about what to be expected from a Tennessee team, what they're allowing right at 26. And Miami, as I mentioned, 29 during the losing streak. But with how it started, that was a disappointment that they weren't able to make threes at a higher rate. So certainly Tennessee deserves credit for that. There in the second half, it looked like Miami was going to lose by double digits. And then all of a sudden they get a little bit of a spark with the rare lineup. Coach decides to put 3 freshmen out there. To go with AJ State-McRae, who I thought played really well. I really like him as a player, as kind of this glue piece that can play both ends of the floor, defend a bigger guard, but also can pass the ball. It doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be effective as only a scorer. So I liked what he had to do today. He had 11 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals. I think that's a great stat line for a guy like him. And I definitely think that that would be important for any lineup he's with, any guys that he's playing with. And we'll see if he's going to remain in the starting lineup. But even if he's not, I just think his minutes are just so crucial if he's that next guy, that first guy off the bench. Then Lynn Kidd, 14 points, 12 rebounds. He was doing well also. So in the second half, those two guys were in with three freshmen, just this rare lineup. Divine Ugochukwu was in with Austin Swartz, as well as Isaiah Johnson-Arugu gets this rare playing time as Miami played 11 guys in this game, and all 11 played at least 6 minutes. The last guy, the least amount of minutes was Jalen Blackman, who just a few games ago was a starter, playing 36 minutes in a game. So a lot of shuffling around with lineups. So that lineup was doing good. They actually cut it down to 7 points, doing good, and kind of creating some things. AJ had a couple steals in there, leads to some buckets. But I find it interesting for a coaching staff and for Larrañaga, how long do you stick with it? It's your hot lineup, but it's clearly not your best lineup with what you have on the bench with your other players. But how long do you stick with them? And I thought he stuck with them a little too long, and a couple plays didn't go Miami's way. A kind of a wild turnover by Austin, give up a 3, a bucket, and now you're down 12. And coach said it, and I think so too. That essentially, was the end of the game. They were just down by too much with not enough time left. So the thing that Coach Larrañaga said after the game that stood out to me, which is something to watch for moving forward, is he was talking about the freshmen. He was talking about Divine in particular. And he was saying that he felt like he should have got Nigel Pack in the game during that run a little bit earlier because he wanted him to play with Divine. And he said that's something that he's going to think about moving forward, essentially playing those two together. So that is something to watch for. And that would kind of, that would address some of the things I've talked about with Nigel Pack, playing him off the ball. He definitely should be on the floor. He's their best scorer. He's their best shooter. I think he definitely has to be on the floor, but I think kind of getting him in more opportune, more advantageous opportunities to shoot the ball and score the ball. And with that, I think it is either off screens or, some spot up stuff, some penetrating and kind of kicking out to him. I think those kind of things is where he's at his best. And I think Divine, if he's in there, if that's the guy, I think that's something to watch for. Again, Divine in this game, had his moments. One of the things that Divine has done a great job of this season is going to the basket. He's got a good ability to finish at the rim with his length, and just he's very efficient with his 2-point shooting. Not a 3-point shooter, not a perimeter shooter, but if he's in there, I think he's a guy that can get to the paint and kind of create some things. And I think he could potentially continue to improve, certainly on both ends. You got to make sure you're good defensively as well. And there's been some lapses this year, understandably for a freshman. But in this game, again, 8 points, goes 3 or 4 from the floor, had 3 rebounds, just the 1 assist, 1 turnover, 15 minutes. But they're a +6 when he's in the game. And that +6 was the best amongst anybody on the team. So I think coach is going to take a look at that, and I think he's going to take a look at that and how it looks with next to Nigel. So that's something to pay attention to moving forward. All right, so look, with where this team is at 3-7, the losses are obviously piling up, and you just can't afford to pile up more losses. And I think moving forward, these next 2 games are key just to kind of get right. Definitely want to win these games, and certainly this team knows they could lose it, losing to Charleston Southern, a couple weeks ago, which to me is the worst loss in Coach Larrañaga's history at Miami. So these games against Presbyterian and Mount St. Mary's should be taken seriously, home games, but I think they're an opportunity to get right. It's only 2 games this month, so I think they've got to play well. If you can get those 2 wins, as they're expected to do, you're going into January 1st. The new year, starting off ACC play with the 2 games on the road, at Boston College and at Virginia Tech. To me, even though Miami has been struggling, those are 2 winnable games, and they're actually favored right now by KenPom to win those games. So I am looking ahead, and if Miami can pull off a 4-game winning streak, get back to 7-7, you'd be 2-1 in the conference. I think you'd feel much better about with where this team is. You cannot erase what's happened already with a 7-game losing streak, but if you can get to 7-7, going to that game against Florida State at home, I think you'd feel really good about with where you're at. Again, drop in the comments below. Let me know what you thought about this game. Were you more encouraged by some of the things you saw? It was only a 13-point loss. Are you taking some positives with that? They are showing a little bit of improvement defensively and with their rebounding. Are you worried about this team really falling apart like last year's team? So we'll see if things can get turned around. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. Really appreciate it. Plenty more content still to come. Take care. Have a good rest of the day.